Become a supporter for my Patreon to get access to all my tutorial project files, including the one you're watching right now. Welcome back. Today we're going to be continuing the minigames tutorial series. In this episode, we're going to be making a shop where players will be able to open the shop with the GUI button, and they'll be able to buy power-ups such as low gravity and speed, and also be able to buy auras so they can have an effect while they walk around. And we're also going to be optimizing some of our scripts, mainly the kill function that will be used in most of our minigame scripts. So the first thing we're going to do is make the optimizations to our script, and as you can see in our module scripts, that most of them have a function called lava touched or something similar, and we don't need this code to be copy and pasted from one script to another and always have to keep copying and pasting it. So I'm just going to make a module script that will contain that function that we can use across our different scripts. So just add a module and call this script kill function. And then you can just take one of your kill functions from your minigames. This one is called lava touched from our lava rising minigame. And I'm just going to put it right here and then press return lava touched and get rid of the parentheses. And I'm also going to rename this to kill function. And then I'm going to go into our game handler, and I'm going to, right below basic ending, I'm going to make a new variable similar to these two, where we'll require the function and then add it to our global table so we can use it in all the different scripts. And now that we've done that, what we can do is just copy and paste this right here. And if we copy it and go to our scripts, we don't need these functions anymore. And when we connect our lava to the touched event, we can just paste this right into here, and it will connect it back to our kill function. And we can also delete this here for our lava rising minigame and paste this right here. And our minigames will work just like normal. We can go test this out, and we'll still die when we touch the parts. It just makes it more efficient and more optimized. So if you ever need to switch the script, you don't have to copy and paste it to every single script in your game. You can see we can just jump in and we die still. And now we can start making our shop GUI. So just go to the description and grab the shop GUI model that I've provided. Then open up your toolbox and just grab it and put it into Starter GUI. You should then see something like this appear on your screen. I'm going to close the toolbox, and you can see that there's a shop on our screen and a shop button. You can also just go into the shop frame and look around and see what I've done, or just turn it invisible so that it doesn't pop up when you first play the game. Also want to show you how I've set this up and how it's going to work. So you can see that in the scrolling frame that there is some buttons that are named so they are displayed and ordered correctly. And each of these buttons has attributes, and I give it a name, a price, and a type of what it is. So the price will help the server know how much it is, and the name will also tell the server what power-up or aura has been purchased. And as you can see, if you click on one of these, you can have the name ice, price, and the type it is. Now we need to make a script so it updates all of these and tells the server when someone is trying to purchase a power-up or aura. So to do this, I'm just going to add a script into our shop GUI, and I'm going to call this local script shop GUI. So this is the first part of our script. We get some variables referencing to the different parts of our GUI, and we also have this variable called item frames, which is all of these frames that are in our scrolling frame. And then we have this variable to a remote function called item purchased, which I have not made yet. So just go into replicated storage, events, and add a remote function. And I'm going to call this item purchased. Now, I'd also like to say this is not an event. This is a remote function. It is in the events folder, but we're not going to have too many events for this game, so I'm just going to keep everything in the same folder. And then next, we go through each of our item frame, and if it's not a text button, we just skip it. And we make sure to update the text of our price label to our price of the frame. And then when it is activated, so when someone presses it, we just invoke the server with our item purchased event, and we also give it the argument of our frame. So the server will be able to check the price and the name of whatever we're purchasing. And then we also print purchase success, so whatever the server tells us what happened, so if we successfully purchased it or not, it will tell us. And right here is the actual main script. So when our shop button is activated, we then check to see if it's visible or not, and if it is, we tween the size of it to its default size, which is our variable up here, which is its normal size, and we tween it to its default size minus our animation size, which is how much we shrink it by when we're closing the frame with an animation. Then we have some tweening, easing styles and directions, and some times that you can change. And we also have a task.wait, so while this animation's playing, we wait for it to finish, then we make the frame not visible. But if our frame is invisible and we need to open it, we make its size equal to its default size minus the animation size, and then we tween it back to its default size, so it will appear a little smaller and then pop out and give it a nice animation. And we also make it visible, so as soon as this is about to start playing, we can just make this visible so people can see the animation. We can go test this out if we want to play our game, and then we can close and open our shop, and it has a nice animation and effects and stuff. So we're going to need to start scripting the server side, but before we do that, we're going to need to update our leader stats script. So what I've made here is we give them a folder called items. We also give them a current item value, which is just an object value. And we also have a current power, which is a bool value telling them if they have a power equipped or not. And right below our wins data loading, I've written some code to load in any items that we've had saved. So we get a sync in our items data store, and I just wrote some lines of code right here to make a new data store. And we get a sync using their player user ID, and if there was data, then we're going to go through that data, and what we're going to do is we're going to save this as a table, and in that table it's just going to contain a bunch of strings telling us what items we have saved. So then we're going to go through that table and then make a new string value and name it whatever item has been saved. And then we're going to put it inside of our items folder, so when we load in, we'll be able to, in our player's model, we'll have a folder telling us what items have been saved. And then in our save data function, after we've saved the wins, I have this code right here to save all of our items. We make an empty table of this. We make an empty table that will have a bunch of strings in it, which we load later up here, but it's currently empty, so we need to go through all of the items in our player items folder, and then we're just going to insert into that table the name of that item. And then we just save to our data store using the player's key this folder, which now would have all of the items saved that the player owns. And also right here, we're going to add a character added event. So anytime their character is reset or killed, we're just going to set their current item to nil and their current power equal to false. If we would like, we can come test this, and there's not going to be much because in our player, we can go to the items folder and there's just going to be nothing there. But if we wanted to, we could go to the server side, still go over here and add a random string value just like so, and then we'll just call this testing. And then if we go to play our game, if we end the game, it will save to our player, and then if we rejoin, you'll see that in our items folder, we will still have this string value named testing. And this is how we're going to save all of the auras that the players have. Now that we have a folder that saves all of the items that we have, we need to make a folder inside of server storage and call this items. This is going to hold all of our items, such as like the auras and the particles will go in here. And also make a module and call this powers. And this is going to be what handles the powers. So if you choose low gravity, then we're going to have a function specifically for what happens when someone purchases low gravity. I'm also going to, inside of this powers module, put some of my own particle effects that I'll be able to use when someone purchases extra speed or low gravity. And I'm going to rename this to powers and also return our powers table. So for the first function, we have the low gravity, and I first get a variable to this event in the events folder called low gravity, which we haven't made yet. So just add one into your events folder, and this is going to communicate to the client telling them that they need to lower the gravity on their side. Because if we lower the gravity on the server, then all players will have low gravity. So that's why we need a remote event. And then we have this gravity time, which will be how long the effect lasts. And we have our function, which will what actually runs, and we clone our effect we put it into the character, and we then fire that event on the player and give it our gravity time. We also wait until that gravity time is over, and we destroy the effect that we put in the player, and we set their player.current_power.value to false, so we can show that they do not have a power equipped anymore. And our next function, extra speed, we have our speed bonus, which is just going to be how much we increase their speed, how long they get this effect. Doing basically the same thing here, but it's a little different. We get their effect, we put it in the player, then we change their humanoid walk speed to whatever it was plus speed bonus, wait the speed time, minus it by that speed bonus, and destroy the effect, and also set their current power value to false. Something I'd like to note here is anytime you are making a new power in your GUI, as you can see when you select one of these and they have the attributes like extra speed, price, and type, make sure that the name here, extra speed, is the exact same one right here. So when it's function powers dot insert the name of whatever power you have, just make sure that is the correct one and it's the same as your GUI, because this is what's going to tell the server what power up they are equipping. Now that we have that done, we can start working on the main script that will actually make the items purchasable. So inside of server storage, just add a script and call this shop handler. So firstly, we get the items folder inside of server storage. We also get our items purchased remote function, and we have the powers module that we require. And we connect our item purchased remote function to when it is invoked, that we connect it to this function so it will run. And we also are given the frame that is going to tell us what the price is and what the price is and what its name is and what type of thing they're buying is. And what we're doing first is we're making sure that they have a character, and if they don't, we just return out of our function. We get the item info, which is our frame, and then we use get attributes, so then we will get a dictionary that will have the price, the name, and what type it is. We also get the amount of wins that the player currently has, and we have this testing print statement that says player is purchasing a type that is called, and then we insert the name and then we insert the price. So this is just a good way to test if your GUI and your script is set up. So we can go to our shop and we can press one of these like fire, and if we open it up, then we will see in our script that Cozy Coin's purchasing an aura that is called fire and is 10 wins. Just make sure that that is printing correctly, and if it is, then we can continue. And down here I've made a function for when players purchase an item, and I'm also going to make one for when they purchase a power-up, but I'm going to make this one first. And the arguments we have is a player, the player character, the item info, and the player wins. And first I make sure I get a variable that checks in the items folder in server storage, and we check to see if an item exists with the name that is in item info. And if it's not, then we warn saying that that item does not exist, and we return. Then we check to see if the player has an item equipped, and if they do, we just destroy that item by getting the value in it. And if the current item.value.name is equal to our info, then we just return false, because there's no point in equipping the same item. And then after that, we clone the chosen item, and we make the current item value equal to that item, and we parent it to the humanoid root part. And then we check to see if inside the player's items folder, if they own this item, and if they don't own the item, then we create a new string value, and we put it in the player's items folder, and we name it the name of our item. And then we also return true to tell our script up here that they indeed need to purchase it. And we also return true to later, because in later up here we're gonna do a check to see if this returns true, and if this does return true, then we're going to charge the player and minus some of their wins. So just returning here makes sure to charge the player, and at the very end just return false, so we also tell it that we don't need to charge them. And then for our power purchased function, we get the same arguments that we did for our item purchased, and I put these prints here, which was just for testing, but you can delete those if you want or keep them. But then we have we have a p call, which goes into our powers module and runs any function with our name, and we give it the argument of the player and the player character. And the reason we put it in a p call is just in case something goes wrong. Don't want the script breaking, and I don't want any errors happening, but if there is an error, then we just check to see if there was an error, and then we warn the player and the error that happened. So with our item purchased and power purchased functions complete, we can check if the item info type is equal to aura, and if it is, then we will run our item purchased event, give it the arguments, and if it returns false, then we know that we don't have to, that the player doesn't have to pay for it because they already own it, so we just return. And then if it's a power up instead of an aura, we also check to see that they don't currently have a power up in use. And if they don't have a power up in use, then we just set their current power value to true. And we also run our power purchase function with the item info and all the other arguments. But if it's none of these, then we just return to make sure, because none of these were correct and it doesn't work. That doesn't make sense, but whatever. And the last additions to our script is before we check any of this, and if it's an aura or power, we check to see if they have less than the price, and if they do and they don't have enough money, then we just return. And also when we're checking if it's an aura, if they already own it, then we also just return so they don't have to pay for it. And then right down here, if we haven't returned and if everything is going well, then we just minus their wins by the price amount, and we return successful so that our local script will print successful, telling us that we successfully purchased it. The last thing we need to do is in our client side, we need to make sure that when this is fired, that our client will actually lower the gravity, so the low gravity ability will actually work. Just go to starter player scripts, and I'm going to add a local script, and I'm just going to call this low gravity. So this is a very short script. All we do is we get our low gravity event, we get our gravity mod, which is how much our gravity is actually changed by, and then we just minus the workspace's gravity by that amount, and we wait the amount of time that we were given, and then we add it back to the workspace. We add the gravity back, so then everything is back to normal. So the last thing we need to do is inside of our items folder, we need to add our effects. So as you can see in our shop GUI, how each frame has their attributes, and if you see that one of the aura ones, how it has a name called ice, this name needs to be matching with one of the items inside of our items folder. So I'm just going to add some effects into here, and I'm going to make sure to call them what they are called here, fire and ice, and then we'll be able to actually equip them. So I'm just going to paste these into here. They're just some effects that I made. So I just added some effects in here, and then I'm going to disable this frame so we won't have it when we first play. But if we start playing our game, you can see that we have the shop. I'm going to buy some low gravity, and we'll be able to have it in a low gravity effect. And I'll also buy a fire aura, and you can see that we have a fire aura while we're running around with low gravity. And low gravity will eventually run out, and once it runs out, then we'll be able to buy our speed effect. And we can also unequip our fire by pressing the fire button again, and it's gone. And we can also buy the ice effect, and now we have ice, which it's more like a blue fire, but it's all good. And we can also unequip it, and once this effect's out, we can also press extra speed, and now we have extra speed. And we cannot purchase any other abilities while we have an ability already purchased. And also we can check inside of our players model and inside of items that we have the fire and ice and testing. And you can delete this through the server side if you want, so I'm just going to delete this testing because that's not actually an item. And then I'm going to end our game, and when I load back in, I will have my abilities, my items right here, fire and ice, and so it should not cost me anything if I click one of these. It did not cost me anything, and we still have the effect equipped. Like and subscribe if this video helped, and leave your video ideas in the comments below.